Welcome, everyone in the Hub, and welcome to the Joinery Business Podcast. We have a special guest with us today. Lynda is a coach at the Joinery Coach, and she's an amazing person. And the reason that I've invited Lynda along today, and this all happened, this is, I don't know what you call it, synchronicity or something like that.
Yeah.
I threw a question in the group, what is it now, 26 minutes ago. Looking for a podcast topic. And of course, you know, there's probably 200 topics we could talk about that would help people. But Tim Mardai, I'm not sure if I'm saying your last name right, Tim, but please correct me, had said men's health issues in the cabinet making industry. Now, that really hit me, like it hit me right in the chest, because that's a topic that's very near and dear to my heart as well. And I think if what you're talking about, Tim, is actually mental health, if your mental health is good, usually your physical health is good. So we do the first one first and the other one kind of follows. And so I thought what would be really awesome if today we could do just a really quick short topic on mental health. Now, the reason that I've invited Lynda to the table here is because she has been working with our entire group for the last 7 months, elbows deep, sleeves rolled up with. And if you could imagine this, working with nothing but cabinet makers and joiners for 7 months, like, can you imagine doing that? I don't know how she stayed sane, but certainly one of Lynda's geniuses is knowing what goes on inside people's heads and being able to help them with that. So what we'll do, Lynda, is just a quick introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you kind of fit into the picture here.
Yeah, sure. Well, I joined you, 7 months ago because I saw your ad on Facebook, and I was like, well, I kind of wanted someone to collaborate with. Plus, I was excited about the industry because that was my dad's background, and then he went on to building and doing other things within the broader industry. But it kind of excited me. I was like, oh, people who do stuff with their hands and actually, the end result for the customer is something that's in their home that they enjoy, or perhaps it's, the end result will be that thing for that house they purchased that you created. But yeah. I guess that, that excited me, and that was a nice change from the work that I've been doing in sort of corporates and things. And yes, I'm screwing up my face a little bit because, sometimes in the reason why I don't resonate with that as much anymore is because sometimes in those really big businesses, it's not tangible to see the effect that you have and you have. And let's face it, we all want to add value and do a good job, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, sure. I love what I do. Very lucky to work with the clients that we've got. Really privileged.
Yeah, and I'll make no bones about it. We're really privileged and lucky to have you on our team. And I say that, but in actual fact, what I'm speaking from is our clients are really privileged to be working with you because you've really made a difference to a lot of people's lives. So the topic of mental health, for me, for anybody in the Hub that's listening right now, I'll just quickly, I won't bore you with the details, but the reason that mental health is such an important topic for me is because it's actually the reason why I do what I do. When I had my business, if you have read my story, you'll know that I hit a point of burnout. And what I know now, looking back after many years, was burnout isn't one of those things that we can talk about lightly. It's mental health. Some people don't recover from it. And I'm one of those people that I'm quite lucky to have come out of that without any major scarring and repercussions from it. But a lot of people don't. The other thing that's not great about it is that a lot of people never see it when it's happening and keep doing it for 30, 40, 50 years and don't actually do anything. So I had a really interesting conversation with a guy that I was talking to today that was thinking about getting some help from us. And he actually said something to me that made me pause and take a step back, because he'd said that he'd read my story 4 years ago. And one thing that made him not want to talk to us was that he'd read that somewhere along my journey, I'd burnt out. And that indicated to him that maybe I wasn't successful in business and maybe I can't help him be successful in business. It's the old story that if you're not a successful professional sports athlete, you can't be a good coach. That old story of if you haven't lived this. Well, what he didn't realize was that our business had some amazing years, and it had some down years. And that really had nothing to do with why I burnt out. Our business had done really well. But the fact is, my message is really about whatever is happening. You need to make a conscious decision that if your business isn't on the path that you want it to be in right now, you have to make a decision to make a change. And I'm one of the lucky ones where even though I was burnt out and I wasn't mentally on top of my game, I was still able to stop, make the change that I wanted to make, and change the direction of my life that I wanted to go in. And that's the message. Now, I'm not saying people need to close their business or sell their business like I did, but what I am saying is don't allow yourself, when you're in a situation of being affected by stress and burnout and all that sort of thing, don't allow it to keep going. You need to make a conscious decision to stop and change. And that's the message. So if your conscious decision is to change the direction of your business or bring in new people, then that's the decision that you need to make. That is my message around mental health, is that change and improvement is really what's going to get you there. Anyway, that's a little bit of a side topic, but what I decided to do was to start helping people in the industry, because I wanted to try and help people avoid some of that pain and suffering that I went through on that side of it, not the business pain and suffering necessarily. Sometimes you have to go through that, whether you like it or not. But as far as mental health and pain and suffering around your mental health, you don't have to go through that. That isn't something that is a requirement to become a successful business. So I thought what we do today, Lynn, is we just sort of have a really good conversation from your perspective. Maybe give us a little bit of feedback on what you've experienced in the last 7 months with this core group of joinery businesses that have this similar sort of problems. What are your main takeaways now that you're right across it all?
We've got a lot of really awesome people who, got great teams and they appreciate, and certainly there's some teams within the mix that have got a bit of work to do because they're probably not as awesome as what clients want them to be or think that they are. And that causes a sense of pressure and overwhelm. But, what I've seen consistently is there's a sense of chaos. There's a sense of overwhelm. Even if someone's running a business and it's pretty effective, we all get to these levels in our times of life, or even in a period in the year. And certainly there's a lot of people at the beginning of this year feeling a lot of overwhelm, certainly right from word go in January to now, people are feeling overwhelmed. What does overwhelm do? Well, overwhelm creates a sense of chaos. And then that sense of chaos, you don't know whether you're coming or going. And, when you've got your team asking for stuff and you clients and you've got suppliers and you're being pushed and pulled, then it's time to really take a step back and kind of look at what it is that you need. I think that sign of, if you're not sleeping, if it's if the overwhelmed feeling or the pressure is stopping you from doing the things in your life that you enjoy, and this goes for men and women, but majority of our clients are men, but I do have similar conversation with a few of the women. Men have a different way of expressing themselves, so you kind of bottle up in a different way. So I think that's a bit of a danger zone to kind of get into if you leave that bottling up feeling too long. Like no one wants to hear about what you've got to say. You've got no one to share it with. You've just got to crack on because you're the leader of the business or the owner and there's no one else to share the load with. Well, actually there is, but we'll get to that in a bit. And if you're not doing any exercise and you're just eating takeaways all the time, or you can't be bothered cooking, or something's changed in your life and it's affecting your sleep patterns, and you've no longer got the capacity to see your friends or family after work or on the weekend, or if you do and you just shut down when you're with them, then just stop doing that. It's easier said than done, but you've just got to stop and take a look at what's happening, because those are all signs of something's not quite right. And the longer you leave that, the more prolonged stress is in your body, the more long-term health effects it's going to have. So, a lot of the guys that I've been working with in the last few weeks are sort of mid-30s. And what I'm seeing is this real pattern of this point in their time and their lives in the last few months where they've hit a bit of a wall, and they've now had that catalyst of, I can either stay and rock in the corner or ask for help. Oh, that's right, we've got these awesome business coaches that can help us. What about Lynda? What can she do to help me? Well, that's sort of what I've been doing to get them match fit. so that they kind of have that structure and, reduce the overwhelm and to make sense of things so they can take a step back and look at what they need to do for their business. So, but
that's really good. I like what you just said. There's a few indicators. Like just recently, my oldest daughter has moved back to Canada to go to university. Now, this is a pretty stressful time. We're happy for her. We're proud of her. We've got all those, real positive emotions, of course. But at the heart of it, I'm really concerned. Like, I'm really worried and I'm going to miss her. So my wife said to me the other day, Bruce, you've had a worried look on your face for the last 4 days. Now, I didn't actually realize that. So I must have had, you can see the lines, you can see that look on my face. And when people around you say things, you're not yourself. Are you feeling okay? Those are the indicators, aren't they, to say maybe something's not quite right with me, because people around me are noticing that I'm not on my game. That's another one of those sort of indicators that you need to take on board and say, hey, I need to do something about this.
Well, sometimes we don't see the effects ourselves, and that's because our ability to read emotions in the moment that we're feeling something is sometimes we put it in a box and chuck it in the corner, right? Because it's easier to deal with later. The more that we do that, the more of an impact that we're going to have to the environment around us. And, probably what we say to ourselves in those moments, even if you're not necessarily, have that devil on your shoulder telling you bad stuff, there's the subconscious language that programs into your body that says that you're missing something. There's an emotional state that's not one of joy, peace, or bliss, ultimately. Not that you have to be heightened states of those all the time, but that kind of nice neutral calmness that allows you to progress in life, and your thought patterns allow you to have that momentum or keep you stuck. So at a subconscious level, people are going to notice it before you do sometimes, because we just make that choice in that split second that says, no, I'll pay attention to it later.
Yeah.
And how many laters do you have to do before it starts having a bigger impact?
Well, the reality is, and I think everybody needs to understand this, if you haven't yet experienced the health effects of stress-related illness, you don't get the impact of it. But you shouldn't wait until you get those health effects of stress-related illness until you get the impact of it, because sometimes it's too late, right? So stress is not something that's just mental. It manifests itself mentally, but then it shows up physically, and it's not a pleasant experience, once you start having those. But it also means you're at the end of it. It's not like you're at the beginning of it. So a lot of damage has been done when that's sort of happening.
Well, let's look at stress for a moment, just as a quick thing in the workplace. So one thing that I've noticed over the years working with various different leaders, and then certainly in this industry, is we have this feeling of guilt and shame if we're feeling overwhelmed. Now, I can tell you that every single person does at some point in time, but we get all up in our heads and say that's wrong. We shouldn't be feeling like this. We should be able to cope. We should be able to do something about it. But the only way to do something about it is to really, truly build self-awareness and to really just stop what you're doing and pay attention to what it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
And, really looking at what are those things that you're bottling up. And it's not all about being expression, having to express your emotions and sharing all of that, but it's just actually really truly owning what it is that you're going through, and actually acknowledging that it might not feel good and it's uncomfortable to be uncomfortable for sure, but just to really say, it's okay, I get it. If I don't do something about it, it's going to affect me long term. And then, the other thing is, as I said earlier, asking for help. And that's really important. So whether it's, if you've got people that you're working with, like we do with clients, Bruce, then, certainly ask for help or, get some help. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, and my situation too, I was in some pretty stressful jobs over the years, but that stressfulness that I chose to bottle up and not do anything with, because that's the normal thing that humans do, just pack it in a corner and deal with it later.
Yeah, just, we'll come back to that. Yeah.
But park that for a second, and then you add on the life events of, family stuff, which with aging parents, there's, or, life events that impact other people's lives. That's even more stress that lumps on. And so, for me, and I was in my early 40s at the time, I had some significant health issues. I was leading really big teams in a really stressful environment, making people redundant all the time, which I didn't love. And I was looking around for other work because I thought, what else is there? I didn't want to do that anymore. But you also learn a lot in that process. And then the life curveball that hit me was, losing my mum and then losing my dad 12 months later. So you can never plan for that stuff. And seriously is probably the most stressful stuff I've ever been in my life. Luckily that I would never have anything like that again, as much as that was awful at the time. But had I known what I know now through all of that experience and my own burnout and overwhelm, I probably would have been able to coach myself a little bit earlier and not do some of those things. So, silver lining is I've now got some tools as a result of all of that. But
so so what I wanted to just let everybody know is we're gonna actually give away 3 really important tips for everybody as to sort of what to do when you do recognize that you're having some struggles. But what I thought I'd actually ask you to do, Lynda, as well, is to talk a little bit about one of your specialties, which is emotional intelligence. I know that you work with the clients of the Joinery coach. A lot of it centers around emotional intelligence and how can we become better in this area of our lives. And I'll put my hand up and say I also did some work in emotional intelligence myself. I got training as to how to become an emotional intelligence coach, not because I necessarily wanted to coach people in emotional intelligence, but because I wanted to get better at it myself. I knew that a lot of times in the heat of the moment, I wasn't reacting the way that I should or in most appropriate ways. So I think there's a lot of people in the industry that can put up their hand if they're being honest with themselves and say, how I react in the heat of the moment is probably not how I would like to looking back on it. And so just tell us a little bit about emotional intelligence and your work around that and how it helps people.
Well, in coaching leaders, we think, it's all about the business, right? But the best way to be the best leader and to get the best out of your people is to understand yourself first. So there's 4 areas of emotional intelligence. Well, motivation is actually at the center of all of them, but there's this self and social. So that's basically yourself and others. And then there's 2 drivers, if you like. So one's recognition and the other one is management. So there's the self-awareness, which is all about understanding yourself and what drives you, and really how you appreciate yourself. So a lot of work I do is ask my clients how they appreciate themselves and what they appreciate in the day. If there's nothing going on there, that's the first thing we need to look at.
Yeah.
If it's all rubbish, that's like a good indicator in itself. And then the other one is the social recognition. So that's how you can empathize and the ability to communicate and respond to others' needs. And then the other 2 are self-management and social management. So self-management is really around your discipline and the structure that you have in your day to help you achieve what it is that you set out to do. And then the social management is how you work as a leader to coach and support and guide and direct your people. So you can see why those things are really important to not only us as individuals, but in the roles of leadership or the roles of running a business or the roles of supporting a team, but also in our family lives and our friendship circles. So when we can communicate better with ourselves, we have a better ability to be able to communicate and be part of an environment that is not impactful to other people in a negative way.
One thing that I loved when I learned about emotional intelligence, one thing that I really loved was the fact that it's manipulatable. You can get better at it, whereas IQ is not something that you can change. You're given this set of DNA stuff, and you got to work with what you're given there. But as far as how you can improve your emotional intelligence, the other thing that I really liked when I started learning about it was all really truly great leaders throughout history have been high in emotional intelligence. They might not have necessarily been high IQ people, though. They didn't need to be, because they had great emotional intelligence, which attracted people with high IQ to them. And
so true. because you've got to get the best out of your people or help them be the best that they can be, because otherwise you'd be just working in business for yourself by yourself, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and that's true with business people, right? Is you want to build your team to create this awesome thing that you're trying to build in the business, and that really, to do that well, it really does require a high level of emotional intelligence. Otherwise, it's just always a struggle and a conflict.
One thing I do get asked a lot, or by some clients, is, I've done DISC. How does this relate to DISC? Or one of those personality profiles. And the thing is with personality is your personality is hardwired. Sure, over time you can adjust some things, but it's hardwired. You can't change it. You can't change who you are. But with emotional intelligence and understanding yourself more and the ripple effect that you have on others, and your ability to lead and have those conversations which feel uncomfortable to begin with, means that you can actually flow a lot more, versus if you just look at your personality by yourself. Well, what does that even mean? What do you do once you understand your personality? So this,
What do you do about it? That's right.
Yeah. It's like, yay, every person I've ever seen, and I'm not bagging DISC, by the way, because it is useful in some certain circumstances, but this is a really good tool to first understand yourself and look at what else you need. It's really really insightful. And gosh, the going through the information when I do an assessment with a client and go through the report with them, they're like, oh my God, how'd they know that about me? And I'm like,
you're in my head.
This is what you said about yourself. We're just helping you make sense of it.
Yeah. So it's been really powerful, that even that element of helping people learn about themselves. And I guess it is that self-discovery element first, right? As you look at yourself first and say, how can I improve? And then you look at others through a different lens, because now you get to know them as people. And in some situations, we've helped leaders get to know their team better and become quite emotional about that, because over the years they were trying to get people to do things a certain way that that person wasn't capable of doing it. So for many years, it was creating all this unnecessary conflict in the workplace, when the actual leader or the boss or the manager should have approached their team as individuals. And the team wants to get an outcome, that's true, but your individuals on the team are not all the same. So as a manager, you need to address people differently. And one of the ways you can do that is learn more about emotional intelligence, or even do some DISC training, which teaches you about your team and yourself. So all of this stuff is fantastic for improving your mental health, because it gives you the tools to deal with some of this stuff a whole lot better.
Yeah, we've got tools in our toolkit that can look at some of that stuff too, around team things, which I probably haven't done too much work with you yet, Bruce, but I've got those tools in my toolkit. But that importance of understanding yourself, and then understanding how your team interact with each other based on some of their their own emotional intelligence. And what I find with the report that I give clients, they use that as a kind of a good communication tool to help sort of break it down and share some of that with their teams. It's really powerful, actually.
Cool. All right. So what I thought we'd do, in answer to Tim's question around men's mental health in the cabinet making industry, which Tim, if I haven't said it before, thanks for answering the question, because a lot of times we get answers to this question like, how do you build a cabinet faster? How do you get your CNC machine to cut board faster? Which are all very good and legitimate questions. But this one really cuts to the heart of a lot of the problems, right? Men's mental health. So thanks for asking the question and having the courage to actually put it in there, because it is still, in our industry, a lot of people are, you don't want to ask that question, that. But I really appreciate you asking it. So Lynda, let's put this together in 3 easy steps, shall we? So let's just say that somebody in a cabinet shop, a person that's been running a business for 7 or 8 or 9 years, has watched this podcast or listened to this podcast and identified some of the issues that we've talked about that would indicate that they're struggling mentally a little bit. Someone has said something to them, they paused and they said, right, I'm really struggling. I'm not sleeping, I'm not eating, I'm not doing my normal things. Maybe I've put on some weight, maybe I've taken off some weight, like things just aren't normal, things aren't right. What are the first things that we would suggest that person does to start fixing the problem or addressing the issue?
Yeah, well, we have this tendency to keep going, but instead of doing that, just stop.
So number 1, stop. Yep.
Just stop. The first thing that I do when I work with clients on that is build that self-awareness for them. So really kind of look at that iceberg effect, if you like, what's going on underneath, what's driving that. So often the thing that's right in front of us, which is the busy day, isn't the actual thing that's really bothering the person. So that's where I can kind of find out what's going on underneath that iceberg.
Yeah. So stop, become self-aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
Consciously aware of what's happening.
Consciously aware. And then the second thing is to own it. Don't bury it. Don't chuck it in a box and put it in the corner and deal with it later. Really get to know what's going on for you and know that you're not alone. Chances are, certainly Bruce and I talked about our own experience. There'll be other people right now that are feeling exactly the same thing as you in a different way, what's going on for them. But it's okay to own it. Give yourself permission, own it. And as soon as you do, you can do something about it. And then the third thing is ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. You can't do it all by yourself. None of us can. Bruce has got a coach. I've got a coach. Like, it's okay to ask for help. I ask Bruce for help. He's good to collaborate with. So,
and I ask you for help all the time.
Yeah. And it's good to ask for help. Like, it's okay to, but we think we have to soldier on and do it all by ourselves, and we just don't. And it's really important to bring other people into the picture. And if you've got an other half that's giving you feedback to say, hey, what's up? You've got to choose whether that's something that's worth saving and cherishing. And that's like one of your catalysts for change. But if you ignore that,
there's an old story that I've read, many years ago when I first read it. I thought, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I like that one. The story of the guy goes to work and he's got all this stress. And when he comes home, he takes off his stress jacket and leaves it in the tree before he goes in the house. And then when he goes out, he puts it back on and goes back to work. Right? So you're leaving all this stuff. Yeah. And when I first read that, I thought, oh, that's really good, because you're separating your work and your life. But it's not. It's crap, because you're not allowing the people that are in your life the ability to help you with things. And you're just putting that stress jacket back on when you go back to work. You're not actually dealing with it in a real way. So that whole story should be banned from ever being meaningful to people anymore.
It's like a client that I had a while ago, and they said to me, why do I need to know that from my people? That's personal stuff. And I said, how could you not? They're here more than they're at home awake. How could you not? Like, they're not separate things. You're one person, you go with you everywhere. And the effect of what we choose to do in our day at work has a massive impact on what we do in our life after work.
And as a person, I'm married, beautiful wife, 3 great kids. If they're struggling with something, and I learned, years later, months later, that they didn't actually ask me for help, I'm actually feeling really mortified about this. But a lot of times they'll say, well, I didn't need you, you were busy, I didn't want to bother you with it. I'm going, bother me with it? That's what I am. I'm your dad. That's what I'm here for. Yeah. And the people in your life will feel that way. That if you don't ask them for help, then, they'll feel a little left out. So I think that the message here is, don't try and balance work and life as if they're separate things. Try and make your work and your life all one thing that does balance when you put it together. And they're not separate. Like, one doesn't exclude the other necessarily.
On that note, can I give you a little extra something to the group?
Yeah, please do.
So one thing I was talking about with a client the other day, we were talking about how he hasn't had the capacity to do a lot outside of work, because work's been taking up a lot of his head space and his heart space too. He's had some stuff going on there. So I said to him, well, who's important to you in your life around you? Can you write a list of who they are and why they're important to you? Because he'd had a mate reach out to him, and it took him a few days to get back to his mate who's really important to him. And he felt guilty for not getting back to his mate in the time, like normally they've got a rhythm going. And he said he felt really awkward by the time he communicated with him. And I was thinking, let the important people know that they're important, because they'll stop showing up eventually if you don't show that you care about them. And I think life is too short in that way, because, people come and go, but let the important people you think are important know that they are.
Yeah, that's a good story. I like that one. Yeah, it kind of hits home, doesn't it? That
Yeah.
it's not about business or money or anything like that. Life is really about the people that are in your life and how you're living it with them.
It's that perspective of why you're doing the business in the first place.
Yeah.
What does it feed?
Yeah. Money's just a result. Has to be there, of course, but it's not really about that.
Without any joy or those things that top up your energy levels, it's going to be hard to sustain any growth in your business anyway, because your glass is going to be a little half empty.
Yeah. Cool. Lynda, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day and doing this with us. And as always, you bring so much gold to the table. And I really appreciate you and what you do for us. And I think we'll leave it at that. Hopefully that's been sort of 3. Where are we here? If I can do this way.
That side, yep. That side, yep.
Okay, this is really hard.
Are you? Yeah, it's definitely on that side. Yeah.
Yeah, the guitar's on this side, so it's on this side. Yeah. Okay. So stop. Be self-aware. Own the problem and ask for help. Those are 3 really good tips. Hopefully, people can take this away and if we've helped one person avoid some mental health issues, I'll be an extremely happy man for the rest of my life. But that's not really our goal. Our goal is to help an enormous amount of people with obviously getting their business off the ground or improve. But primarily, we're here to help people with their mental health and their life and get everything on track the way they want to. So again, Tim, thanks for asking the question, because it really did spark me to say, this is a good topic. Let's dig into it. Again, Lynda, thanks for your input. Anything else that you wanted to add before we sign off on this podcast?
One thing I didn't really say on the getting help bit is keep it simple. We overcomplicate things, and the simple things are going to be the things you can do first and do really well and feel really good about it. So do that.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. Thanks again. That's been great.
Thank you.
We'll chat to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. Have a great night. Thanks.
All right. Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye.